it's Don the Auction Professor. Today I thought I would show you some media items you should be looking for. Now these are all going to be vintage items because, you know, mostly what I do is vintage items. I'm going to show you some 35mm slides. Very good item to get. A lot of people pass these up. I'm going to kind of show you what's the best ones to get and where your money would be best spent when you're buying those. I'll show you some 8mm films, some 16mm films, and some 35mm films. We'll also go into some vintage photos and things along that line. I do a lot in photos. I do a lot in media items, and I'm sticking basically to, you know, like personal type of media, like home movies, some, you know, 16mm, you know, home theater movies, so maybe some trailers and things like that. But all of that kind of stuff sells and does very, very well for us. It's a big mover. It's at least 10% of our business. But 35mm slides, for example, we've sold some for, you know, $300-400 a slide. 8mm movies, home movies, we've sold them into the hundreds of dollars for an individual movie. The same goes for 16mm. I've sold photos, just an individual photo, for over $1,000 on many occasions. So it just depends on what you have. But we're going to go over to the screen, and I'm going to show you some items and what to look for. These would be BOLOs in anybody's book, and these should be items that you are always on the lookout for. But we're going to hop over to the screen right now.
Okay, so, you know, as I said, I've talked about film and media stuff all the time. The first thing I ever sold on eBay was actually this Star Wars 8mm Super 8 film. I got it at a thrift store or garage sale or something. We had it around, this is 20-some-odd years ago, mind you. And just threw it up for a lark, and we ended up getting like 30-some-odd bucks for it. And we had a bunch of Pez, and, you know, that's how we even found out about eBay. eBay was a big Pez thing at one time. And, you know, that's literally the first thing we sold was an 8mm film. Wasn't something I really collected or anything. I was a big Star Wars buff back then until they, in my opinion, ruined the franchise. But anyway, so I've been into 8mm film. When I was a kid, my parents shot 8mm film of us. I actually have footage of me when I was a child, you know, very young, 3, 4, 5 years old, and even before that, there's family footage of my parents. So, you know, I've been around 8mm film. I had a projector at our house. You know, I took it apart, and I even made animated films with my parents' projector without asking, and, you know, the camera they had. I actually rewired it so you could shoot 1 frame at a second. I took the handle apart, and anyway, long story short, you know, I've been into 8mm films for a while. You know, and as a little, when I was older, you know, in high school, we had, you know, 16mm at school, and, you know, these are things that you run into still at garage sales and thrift stores even, and auctions especially. I have hundreds of rolls of 8mm film, and we'll watch a few of the films. One of my kids loves doing that part of it, so he'll take shots, actual, you know, video, or, you know, actual still images of the films, and that's how we sell them. There's not a huge amount of people selling them, so there's little competition on some of these items, and even fewer that actually look at the film and show images of the film. So that's what sells these the most. If you're going to sell something like this, you have to take photos. You see right here, 16mm, you know, another 16, 35mm sells as well, 2 feature films. You name it, you can find it. The ones that I think are the best and the ones you're going to run into the most are home movies, whether they're 8 or 16mm, and then 35mm slides, and there's a few other media items that you can run into. But these are the key ones that I mess with. This is just a home movie. There's no sound. Let's see if it says the size of the reel. Most of these reels are like 50 feet, well, 400. So this isn't a huge one, but it's not small. This is like just a standard mid-sized one you would find, you know, in anybody's collection of home movies. But you see, this one went for 50 bucks. And all this guy really needed to do was, you know, take a few photos of it. That's all he did. And he just probably laid these out on a light table. You can get a light table very cheaply these days. I have a couple of them. In fact, both of the ones that I use were bought at either auction or from a picker. So, you know, they're cheap items that you can find. But this made the difference in price. He probably got, you know, a whole bunch of home movies for, you know, just a few bucks at a garage sale. Does it say where he got them from? No, there's no real, you know, comments on where these come from. So it doesn't really matter where you find them from anyway. It's just the content. I always buy home movies like this just for, to look through and then split them up and sell them individually. If they don't sell individually, you can always dump them on eBay and sell them in the lot. They always sell. So this is a hot bolo. I always pick these up every time I see them, if it's a quantity, if it's home movies, and even if it's not home movies. Name brand films and cartoons sell constantly. I sell almost every single 8mm film I have within, say, the first couple months. Always. I very rarely keep any on the shelf or in stock, and I always buy it. As I said, I've got hundreds of them now still to go through. We'll get them. They'll sit on a shelf for a little while until my son has, his free time from other stuff he's doing, and he goes through and takes photos of them. And I'm just going to show you a few here. We're going to go a little quicker here. I'm not going to discuss every one. And this one here's another one, $59, just another home movie. It's from the 60s and 70s even. My time frame from the films that, when I was a kid. So here's another one. This is just winter scenes. Here's another one, Trains, Fire, Amusement Park, 1970s. Let's see if we can see this one here. Yeah, here we go. Now, this kind of film, I do find these trains because back, in the 60s and 70s, that was still excitement for people to get up close to them and see equipment and things. And this is what sells. This stuff always sells for us. I sell pretty much every home movie with any decent content shown in the clip. Even if there's only like 5 scenes and I can show 5 or 6 good shots, it's going to sell. Roller coasters, amusement park rides. People digitize these. They'll clean them up. They'll use them for like documentaries and things like that. There's a ton of collectors who collect this type of material. There's never a problem in selling these. And again, there's very limited competition for those of you who are willing to take the photos and project these. If you get a projector or buy a lot with a projector, you only have to buy one projector. Check it out first, make sure it works. If it doesn't work and everything runs and it just doesn't project, it's probably the bulb. But check out the bulb prices before you buy that specific one to use, because some of the bulbs might cost you more than a projector. You can get projectors for like $5 at a garage sale, no exaggeration. In films, I can get a big box of films for $15, $20 religiously all the time. There's probably, every month I probably get 2 or 3 lots of 8mm or 16mm films, or a lot of home millimeter films, at least once or twice, every single month. So, it's out there, and I don't, just constantly bomb areas just for that. So, it's just whatever I walk up on. I'm not, actively looking myself. My pickers do pick it up, so if they run into it, boom, they'll get it for me. But let's move on here. Just more films. Again, $84. It's a 1955 trip to New York. And, most home movies from this time frame, that's what they are. They're specific trips they went, because normal day life is expensive to take shots and things. So, that's why it's expensive, and some of these go for a ton of money. They're one of a kind. You own the rights to them if you have the film, so you can do whatever you want with them. You can sell them, you can market them, you can throw them up on YouTube and use them for background footage. Whatever you want to do, they're yours at that point. This one went for $130, and again, 70s. Probably Montana footage is probably why this one. Let's see if we can look at it close up. Yeah, this one's some nice shots. Oh yeah, they're really on the roller coaster. Nowadays you can't do that, unless you work there, because they don't allow you to, or want you to have devices out. And back then, this is a big handheld piece of machinery, basically, for the most part. So this one's a pretty good shots here. But this is what sells it. $130 for the content you see here in this one. So, anything in the 8mm line could have something good in it. It only takes a couple shots to have somebody interested in buying it. New York City scenes, downtown scenes of any town, almost any town, go for money. This is, naval aircraft carrier. I've gotten lucky, and I have some right now that we're waiting to list until I can shoot a few more. I'll do like 15 or 20 home movies at the, and list them all together, and I'll wait till we have enough footage or clips from that many to do it, because you'll get collectors that might buy 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of your movies. Sometimes I've had somebody buy all of the ones I put up. So, I've learned from that lesson, and I always do that nowadays. But this guy got 170, and this was just probably some reel he found in a box. That's most of the case with these kind of items. This one's German-occupied France. This stuff comes back from World War, II GIs, and then it shows up in estates and auctions around here. And I'm sure that's the same case with anywhere. I've been able to acquire gun camera footage, the 8mm footage from a German one before, and I've also, had U.S. gunfighter footage and things like that showed up in big lots. It was an ex-soldier. Whether he swiped the footage or whatever happened, the point is it ended up in personal collections, and then I bought these collections unknowing what was in it, and then I'm getting some huge item. This one went for $230 some odd. So, this is just another good example, and that's not the holy grail of what you would find either. Holy grail is like a mass-produced movie even on some cases. Here's The Lion King, the Disney animated, $350. Here's Ben-Hur, $450. And these can be old or new. It doesn't matter the vintage of it. This is West Side Story, $450. Here's Trainwrecks again, $535 for this one. This was probably mining. Anything mining I always sell, and I always sell it very quickly. That's just the way it seems to go. Always sell. TV series will sell too, and they will show up. So don't think they're not going to show up. Oh, this one somehow we got in the wrong one. But this is Seattle mining and stuff. Those will sell. And again, $535. Train ride, $618. This is 1939. So this is a real early one. The earlier, the better for the images, it seems, but not always the case. Now, if you walk in and you're viewing some footage and it turns out that there's some famous person or you're filming it or whoever had the film filmed like an Elvis concert, you've got some big money there. Now, I had a friend who had a couple, maybe 50 seconds worth of an Elvis concert. That was all that was caught in the film. It was in the last part of the reel, so the guy probably ran out, couldn't change it, or the other reel was somewhere else, and he got like $700 for that 50 seconds worth of film. So that just goes to show. This doesn't look like anything spectacular either, but it's an early footage. It's dateable, real nice trains. See, they even put a title in there. That's what you're looking for, is something like this. The motorcycle, oh, this is really a good one here then. Rides from back then, airplanes, probably looks like a show of some kind, like an air show. But these are all good items. And they get better. Concerts are the best. This is a Pink Floyd concert from Hyde Park, $1,100. And this is just somebody's home footage. You're going to find this stuff occasionally when you do this. It's just like any item. It's the Holy Grail. This would be a Holy Grail item. This would be like the key bolo for this category of items. But again, this stuff always sells for us. Pocahontas, $970. So that just gives you an idea on what does sell. The same can go for 16mm home film. So let's just type in 16mm. And I'll just show you this as well, too. And then we're going to do slides. And I'll probably break it up into just these three topics today, so we're not having a couple-hour video. There's a lot of these items that sell, and they sell constantly. I've done always better with 16mm home films. They're thicker than, obviously, or wider across than the 8mm. Bombed buildings in this one. This is just probably some GI that was over there. $813. World War II. This is another good one. $710. Now, don't think that these aren't going to show up, because these, again, I find these almost as much as the 8mm at estate shows or at big estate auctions. Now, these are sight unseen when you're buying these, so you got to really have a sense on some of this and be able to dig into what's there just by being able to look at them sitting on a table. Whether there's writing on it, labels, whatever the case may be, you got to check the smell out too. If it smells like vinegar, that's a vinegar syndrome. They're not worth getting if they smell like vinegar, unless it's some really great shot, but you won't know until you watch it. So pass up the vinegar ones. Movies again. Here's like The Munsters Go Home. That was the movie they did, actually. They did one movie-length film for Munsters, and that was it, if I remember right. $550 for that one. Home movie 1933, $513. That is an early one. I'm surprised that one didn't go for more. That's very exceptionally early. Hong Kong, China. That's a real good one. That's pretty cool. Again, just look at the prices here. $425, $400, $395, $361. And I did not sort these by sold. These are just literally all the completed listings. And when you hit a certain point, you're going to see that there's a ton that every one sold in that price range, like every one. The Deep South, Georgia, Flood, Chicago, Air Show, the Bird South Pole Ship. Now that's pretty cool. I'm surprised that didn't go for more. Admiral Byrd went to the pole, and that was just what that was discussing. That's another thing. Anything related to that, whether they're stamps, covers, sheet music, anything with Byrd, Admiral Byrd on it sells. So 8mm films always sell, as do the 16mm. Spade Cooley, he's actually a Western swing singer. I'm surprised this didn't go for a little more. Convicted murderer. Oh, did not know that. So you learn something new every day. I've sold records by this gentleman here. Convicted murderer, that's pretty interesting. I might have to actually look that one up. But you can see there's actually literally home movies in here. Japanese vacation home film, New York City, 1938. I sold a just one single reel of 16mm, and I think it was a Max Sennett film that I just found in some home movies, and it was one that wasn't known, and we got almost $900 for that, and I paid like $20 for this lot of film. So I always look for that. Let's back this up, and we are going to look just at this so you can see some of the non home movies. Steamboat Willie, First Disney Film Fan Club. Star Wars. Now here's a good example. $3,350. Now I've had, versions of Star Wars in 16mm, 10, 15 years ago when they weren't going for as much. Again, this is the uncut original version, so that's a big difference too. Now here's Thunderball, sold in the over $2,000 range. Aliens. $2,000. These are things that you could project very large. These could fill an auditorium and you would be able to project it. These would be ones that would be shown, even by movie theaters in some cases when they were this rare of a film to find in some areas, or sometimes in some areas though. This is an oddball one. The Forbidden City, 1,300. Now, I've sold some China ones, 16mm China ones, for just a hair under $1,000. And I've sold some from Hong Kong for the same price range. So even World War II, like newsreels of China activity, sell too. But you can see these all sell. There's more that sell. The sell rate on these and the high dollar item is, huge. It's like 50 or 60% sell right off the bat for a decent price. And you can see, and I'm not filtering these. The majority of them sold. Just gives you an idea. Let's do just one more search on film while we're here. There's actually 8mm, 16mm, 35mm, and there's one more that most people don't talk about because they don't run into them. It's 70mm. Dolby is what you usually see them as. Now, I know about these personally because when I worked at a movie theater, my boss actually ran the productions for a bunch of theaters. He ran the theater as the part owner, part manager, and then he projected for other places. Projectionist, when Empire Strikes Back was released, and in there was a preview clip for Revenge of the Jedi. And that was in 70mm, and he actually got some clippings. I owned some of them too. I ended up able to buy some of those off of him, but I actually have 70mm wide Dolby film of Revenge of the Jedi, the title sections and stuff, and some shots too. But that's been one of the pluses that I've always had and kept in my collection. But these sell all the time. Even unused motion picture film, because that's what you see a lot of these are, because people still actually produce and do it on their own at their house, believe it or not. I know somebody who owns a 35mm camera. He still projects. He owns a 35mm projector as well too. And on the weekends he collects horror films and things like that, and he'll project horror films. He does do projection services for a theater. He can't nowadays play those there anymore because of the type of material, and he wouldn't want to ruin their equipment. But that just gives you an idea. These you're mostly going to see in 35mm. Let's just say, let's do it this way. Let's back up and put movie. And we'll see what happens here. Truck Stop Woman, good one here. Now, I've run into these. I've had 35mm film. When we lived in Mississippi, I bought out a huge stack of these from closed down movie theater. They were found in the attic, and they were like 1930s silent films and stuff. And they're on nitrate, so you can't just send them in the mail. So you got to know something about some of the earlier ones. but I sold them for, thousands of dollars. I mean, we made a ton of money. It was a quick, easy, quick turn. And the person who bought them paid a company to come out and special wrap them on my porch. And we're talking, I had like 400 pounds of film, maybe more than that even. I took 2 trips in my van even. It was so much material. But it was like 30 or 40 movies that we were able to get the entire collection out of there, out of the attic of this movie theater. I mean, we made like, I don't know, $6,000-7,000 off of that. It was a huge profit. But right here, like Star Wars, $4,000. Space Odyssey, $3,200. These are the actual full-fledged 35mm film that would play in the theaters. These still show up. They still sell. I don't know the legality on them. I know you cannot play these in a public performance at all. Don't ever get caught doing that. Here's an incomplete Star Wars. Here's It's a Mad, Mad, Mad World, and it's turned red, it looks like, too, because I know the film. That does not look like the right color. But it just shows you this stuff sells. Jurassic Park, Tucker, Star Trek 4, The Exorcist. I mean, these all sell. What you'll run into most of are trailers. 35mm trailers. Now, I get these too. Sometimes I'm lucky enough and I run up on a lot at an auction, and there might be a couple hundred trailers for, like $300-400, and I'll buy them. Usually trailers do very well. I mean, here's just a few. $345 for just a trailer, and a trailer is that 2.5-minute max usually is the length of these things. Sometimes they're 30 seconds to a minute and a half. And, they still sell. Here's Rocky trailer. And I've even had this same one and sold it for like $160, $170. Jaws trailer, and it's the 3D version, $250. Trailers are what you're going to run into usually in 35mm film. Seventh Voyage of Sinbad. I've seen, that's a good movie. They Live, that's a good movie. For cheesy ones, they're not bad. They're decent movies. Disney ones I've sell. Key Largo. I mean, you name it, all that kind of material sells. But that just gives you a good idea on that stuff there. Let's look up, let's move this to, in fact, I don't need to delete all that. We're going to look at slides now real quick. Slides are another area that I see all the time. Big item, big push for us. We've made a ton of money on slides. Some people buy them offline, but usually when you see the big lots, they're people who have looked through them. When you're thinking about doing something like that, just take a quick look at the person selling and what else they sell, and you're going to see a ton of slides. I would never mess with the ones online. You just don't know how picked they are. But that doesn't mean you can't sell them yourself back online, the ones that won't sell. That's usually what I will do with big lots. I'll just sell them back online, and usually somebody will take a shot and buy them anyway. There's different kinds of slides. There's promotional slides that are like transparencies rather than slides, and that's what this one is here. Stuff like this will sell too, believe it or not. High dollar items, they usually are. Approximately 240 muscle building. Bruce of LA, no idea who that is, but just some muscle builder. He probably produced his own private slides for maybe he sold them to magazines or something. You see it went very well. Even the slide equipment I run into, I have a slide scanner, but I usually just throw them up on a light table and do a quick shot, and that's usually what I do. Or I have a movie TV screen type of slide projector. Here's a huge collection there. Here's another collection, huge collection of slides. A lot of these movie performers, if it's an actual full-fledged home shot slide, they go for a lot of money. I sold the Big Bopper slides for like $600 a shot. That was my high-dollar rock star slides. Let's see here, the Outsiders, photo transparency slides. This is probably a group, it says 11, I would say. The movies, for press kits, they used to issue slides sometimes. They're basically a transparency so you could have a high-quality image. With a 35mm slide from this, you would have enough quality to actually use it for a magazine illustration or magazine photo. And those are the ones that you want to look for too. The older these are, the better. Usually like movies from the 50s and 60s slides of sell extremely well. Seoul, Korea. We've got a lot of scanners in this area. I wonder if I can zoom down that. Let's look in collectibles. It's going to probably cut us off on some things, but there's still 85,000. Here's a few here. Bruce Lee collection transparencies. Big money there, $600. Stunning Michael Jordan dunk contest 35mm slide. And this is just a single slide. This is, one slide, $561. These are things that you're going to find in slide collections. I mean, every slide collection I think I have ever found and bought, I have found good slides in there well enough to make, 100 times my investment in some cases, but at least 10, 20 times what I paid for the lot in just a slide or two. These are stereo. These are for stereo viewing slides even. This is a pretty interesting one. These don't show up too much, and they almost always sell. And these are Kodachrome on top of it. You'll see two of the same image on one slide, and $410 for 4 slides. So, this type of material always sells. Big, huge money movers. We buy them all the time. Every chance I get. I don't mind buying them sight unseen as long as it's a huge quantity of them. Korean War, military, that's a pretty interesting one. These are something you wouldn't see. This guy could have probably put more on them. He took probably over $300 in the $300 range offer on those. Now, I would have probably held on to them. Adult slides, they sell too. Car-related slides sell. Just the amount of items that sell is horrendous in slides. Anything imagery sells. Red border, Kodak, those are what you look for too. But that just gives you an idea. There's just a ton of slides. Here's some glass slides. These are 35 millimeter sized glass plate slides. It's kind of like a Magic Lantern slide if you're familiar with those. Early Magic Lantern slides sell extremely well too, as do like glass plate negatives. And I'll show you some probably in another video. I've got all this type of material. I've got a ton of glass plate negatives that I bought recently from Ohio State collection. It was some gentleman who was a teacher at Ohio State, and I've got a ton of glass slides that show some inside buildings on Ohio State in like the 30s and stuff. I just got them not too long ago, but these are some of the oddball items you're looking for. I was going to include photos in this video today, but I'm probably going to cut it off at that because it looks like we're running long on time already. So I'll have a second part to a media one coming up maybe in the next week or so. But let's just touch base on these a little more. Vietnam War. Again, he even wrote estate. This is what you're going to find. Estate stuff. That's where a lot of these show up. Estate auctions, estate sales, flea markets, big antique malls, because dealers, again, this is just like postcards, these slides. People don't mess with them. They're not going to look up individual slides. They're just going to dump these off the way you see them. Probably 90% of all slides in home films have not been picked through when you're seeing these quantities out in public. If they're for sale somewhere, chances are no one's looked through them. If it's a slide lot, there's hundreds of slides, or a movie lot, again, no one's probably looked through them. Most people do not mess with projecting these at all, or looking at these, or they don't own a light table. I have almost no competition when it comes to buying these items. Again, almost no competition, and these are BOLOs all day long. You'd be crazy not to start looking for these items and finding them because there is no competition. And when they do put them up with images, they sell very, very easily and very, very quick. Look, you can just look at these. The ones that have close-ups of the items usually sell much quicker than the other ones. That one does. This one's just a huge lot. You just can't go wrong. Let's look at a few more pages so I'll give you more idea here on this. Slides there was a military. Here's again, he's got photos so you can kind of get a judge on what's there. Star Trek. Now, I've had Star Trek film slides too. These sell extremely well, and this one's turned red even from age because of the film they use. But these still sell. You can still digitally alter those. These are extremely rare. Hank Aaron Game, Kodachrome Red Border, Occupy Japan, Hollywood Bowl Brown Derby. This is just one slide, $200. Here's another single slide, $200. Jets I always sell. Any airplane one, I always sell those for good money. Every single one that I've ever gotten. And I usually get, a couple at least out of any big lot I get. Slides on vehicles. Here's $300 or $200 for 300 slides. 170 slides, $200. Now, these people could sit there and turn around and resell these and throw them up for $10 a slide. And, he's got $3,000. A lot of people don't want to take the time to do that. And that is why these work and sell very well. We're still in the high dollar. When you get down to the, $10 to $40 ones, they sell constantly. You can't get enough of those to sell quick enough. I mean, they sell constantly. They're always big sellers. Again, anything airplane related, airports, is this just This is just one slide again, $177. You know, I pull these out. That's the ones I do, and the rest I bunch together or re-auction them or something like that. But I make a ton of money when I sell slides and list a ton of slides. Same thing, just like postcards. If I list a bunch of postcards, I sell a bunch. If I list a bunch of slides, I sell a bunch. And they don't have to sell in big, huge lots of them. You're going to make your most money if you don't mind waiting on these. These are residual income items, everything I'm showing you. They usually sell, you know, good items. If you get real good top ones, they sell very, very, very well, and they'll sell quick. China, you know, military, pre-1950s, all that stuff sells quick, regardless of the content, as long as there is content in it. Disneyland, Korean War, and these are all single slides on some of these cases. This is a bunch, but single one there. And again, these are just random, whatever this person has found. Military ones, again, they sell the best. Adult ones I see in here too, we'll just flip by those. But that just gives you an idea here on what to look for. Again, I'll probably cover photos because there's a lot to talk about in photos. I'll probably go over all the types of photos you're going to run into, whether it's the daguerreotypes, ambrotypes, tin types, album cards, sienna tints, gelatin tints, gelatin photos, cyanotypes, all the different types of photos I'm going to run over probably in another one, CDVs, the whole works, and we'll discuss that just separately on its own. I've even had some subscribers tell me they found this type of material. It does show up. And, you know, it's something that I would project. I know a lot of people don't want to waste the time. If you get a couple hundred reels of film, you know, for $20, I would highly recommend, if you have the projector with a lot, to look through some of these. You might end up hitting one on its own that's worth $200 or $300 on its own, one single reel out of there. You're definitely going to get some decent money, you know, out of some of the reels. If it has like a theme park or something, you might get $100 out of a Disney. One small reel that's, you know, 4 or 5 inches across might net you $100, $150 out of those lots. So, you know, again, these are things you should look at. And I find them constantly. I find film or slides, you know, constantly. Every single month, almost every single week, something like this turns up in my possession that I've acquired. So, you know, this is just something you need to look for. But hopefully that gives you some ideas and just some thoughts and some stuff to look for outside of the box of your normal items. They sell. They're good money. They're quick movers for the most part. You can list them on auctions if you feel more comfortable, but they're going to sell. So there you have it.
Well, there you go. There's a nice list of BOLOs. A lot of items that I look for. You saw some of the huge, horrendous prices some of these items go for. And it's items that you can see and find all the time, and it's mostly passed up items. A lot of people don't think 35mm slides are worth anything, or 8mm films, but they all are. And as I said, one of the keys to like 8mm and stuff is to actually have a projector and be able to watch them or record clips for them to actually post to the listing. That'll increase the profits tenfold in many cases. So again, Don the Auction Professor, hopefully you really learned something today, saw something, and gave you some ideas, some helpful advice. If you did enjoy it, please hit the like button below, subscribe, and tell a friend.